Hello, today I'm going to talk about rebuying books that you used to own, and also I'm going to show you some things that I have rebought recently. Is this a book haul? I think this is a book haul. You know that feeling you get when you finish a book that you really loved and you just want everyone around you to be able to experience that as well? Well, whenever anyone asks me for a book recommendation soon after I've read a book like that, I just force the book into their face. I'm like, just read this and love it the way I loved it. But it's only been recently that I've started actually keeping track of the books that I give people. And I was lying in bed the other day, my bed is right there, looking at my wonderful shelves, as I like to, and I was thinking of all of the books that I really love that just weren't there anymore. So I decided to just rebuy a few, and not out of any desire to immediately reread them or anything, but for two reasons. One, as I said, I like to lounge on my bed and just look at my books. I feel like just having them physically on shelves makes me kind of passively think about them a lot more. Even if I read something as an ebook or as an audiobook, I tend to buy the physical thing as well, just because it's a nice kind of reminder of that reading experience. And the other reason is that I think your personal collection of books should be kind of representing you as a reader, which is why I try not to keep around that many books I never actually intend to read. And you want to have the books that you care about be part of your collection because it's a kind of an extension of you. I do realise this is a super privileged thing to do, just buying stuff because you like owning them, you like having them on your shelves, but it feels important to me, so I do that now. So I have this whole pile of books on my lap, and some of them I rebought in the exact same edition I had before, some I didn't. I will just go through them and talk about them because that's what we're here for, isn't it? First book I have to show you is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I actually did a video on this book like 3 years ago around the start of this channel, but it was when I slightly upped production value, so it is actually watchable. I'll leave a link to that in the description. It is about a man named Humbert who is essentially a paedophile and obsessed with this little girl called Lolita, and it's all done from his perspective, and it's just it's so good. For this one, I didn't buy the same edition as my previous copy. I think it was a vintage edition. It had a nice illustration on the front. This is what that looked like. They did a whole line of Nabokov's work in this style, which was really lovely, but since I don't have any of the other ones, I wanted to get something that fitted more into my library, and I only have quite a small. These are all of my Penguin Modern Classics, so time for some more. Next I have a very strange book called LMNOP, and it is by a gentleman called Mark Dunn. This I read on holiday when I was 16. My dad was like, read this, you'll really enjoy it, and it was kind of me enjoying reading, so it was quite amazing how much I loved it. This is definitely one of the ones I do actually really want to reread because it's been a long time and it was so interesting. So it's based on this island called LMNOP where they worship the man that made the pangram, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So a pangram is a phrase that contains every letter in the alphabet. They have a statue of the guy that made the pangram, Nevin Nollop, in the town square, and one of the letters falls off of the statue. The Z, I think, is the first letter. And the island basically takes this as a sign that they shouldn't use that letter anymore. So they're literally banned from using certain letters. And as the book goes on, more letters fall off and they have fewer letters that they can use. But it's also written in as a series of letters, and when one of the letters falls off, you no longer see it in the text. So it's really fascinating just in a vocabulary and grammatical way, because you just has to make fully formed paragraphs and stuff just literally without some letters. So the story follows this teenager, LMNOP, as she kind of just navigates the island going through this, and talks a lot about the politics of who is making the decision to not eat, and it's just a really interesting book. And also not something I've ever seen talked about on BookTube or ever in real life. I don't know where my dad found it, but it's really interesting. Next, I have Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. I'm quite annoyed by this because I wanted to get the same edition as my old one, which is far less beautiful than the new editions, but I bought it used and now it's not the same size. The different dimensions to normal book dimensions, and if you know anything about me, you know that I really care about book dimensions to a strange degree. And I know that my original copy was the right dimension, so I don't know what the fuck has happened here. I might have to buy it again, that's so... So Jeffrey Eugenides wrote this book and one of my favourite books of all time, The Virgin Suicides. And this is about a girl called Callie who is intersex. It's quite a chunky read. It goes through 3 generations of the family. So the first was when they were emigrating out of Greece, the second was Callie's parents in Detroit, and Callie's life until she's a late teenager, I think. It kind of explains why her body is different through kind of all of this history. It's quite an epic tale. It didn't feel like it was, you know, you needed to know about Callie's grandparents to understand her. But it was just like so narratively delightful. I really liked it. Speaking of Jeffrey Eugenides, smooth transition, I did a video like 2 or 3 years ago on my other channel about the other book, The Virgin Suicides, and about how I had lost it and I was really sad. And then I bought a new copy of it, which is these nice new covers, and that I was sad about that because it wasn't the same as my old edition. So I made a cover for it using a photo I had taken of my original copy, and yeah, the rest is history. Apart from when I was on this binge of rebuying books, I was like, hell, why don't I just actually buy my old edition? So now I have 2 of these, and this is the same. I don't know if you can see that, but it's this, like, it's the picture of this book that's in this. Oh, it's just so nice. The Virgin Suicides is a story about 5 sisters that are really kind of ethereal and enigmatic and seem to float through the world, but they're all severely depressed and all basically trying to kill themselves. It just puts you in this dreamy, ethereal state, and I can't say enough good words about this book. I 100% lost this book by just like forcing it onto people, but I don't regret it because it's so fucking great. Please read it. Please read it. Next, we have Haruki Murakami's Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World. I feel bad about this because I know that I gave it away. About a year ago, we had a party and I put a ton of books on the table being like, please take these away from me because I don't want them anymore. This was one of them, and now I regret it. I think I just felt guilty because I had a lot of Murakami books I hadn't read. But after reading Kafka on the Shore, which I did a video about a couple weeks ago, I was remembering how much I really enjoyed this one, so I wanted to bring it back into my life. There's no good way for me to describe this at all. Like, it alternates between chapters. One is in Hard-Boiled Wonderland, and then the other narrative is in The End of the World, which is like a fantasy-esque space. Kind of feels like you're in a town in Zelda, when the other one is like in downtown Tokyo and then tunnels, and I don't even, like, it's just really Murakami, but in all of the good ways. So this is back in my life. And finally, we come to Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I fucking love this book. When I read it like 3 years ago, I made a video of it on this channel, again, link in the description. I was like, this is the best thing I've read all year, and it was the best thing I read that entire year. It was just great, and I'm annoyed that I have lost this or given it away because I had loads of, it was before I started just outright writing in books. I had loads of post-it notes on this, and I remember I had the back and it was just covered in post-it notes with like really detailed notes on what I thought of it. So I'm sad that I've lost that, but whatever, life goes on. This book is set in a future where everyone pretty much spends all their time in a virtual reality world. So essentially, the man who made this entire VR world, called Oasis, he died without an heir, and he left an Easter egg somewhere in the world, and if you found that Easter egg, you would then own like the majority of the company. And that man, James Halliday, was obsessed with 80s pop culture, so the whole world is just rife with 80s everything. And the story follows this boy as he goes on the quest to find the Easter egg, pretty much, and it's just every moment is fun and exciting and wondrous, and oh, it's so good. Yay! I hope you've enjoyed this video of me just geeking out about books I love that I'm glad I own again. Do you guys have a system of keeping track of books you've lent to people? I need to just start writing it down, because at the moment I'm just like, I lent that person that book, I lent that person that book, and then every time I see that person I'm like, can I have that book back, can I have that book back? Which isn't very conducive to them enjoying the literary works that I'm trying to spread. So yeah. And this is also a message to you, my dear list reader, that you can rebuy books if you want to. If you feel like them being back in your life would make your life better, you know, £8 here and there, just do it. I have a kind of latent guilt about it, and I am writing that off right now. So I am going to write off your guilt as well. Don't feel guilty about buying stuff that you like. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week.